Greetings, Church of St. Michael. Father Froehle here with another episode of Father Froehle's Footnotes. Over the last several weeks, we've been talking about the 4 cardinal virtues, and today we have reached the last of these cardinal virtues, which is the virtue of temperance. Now, oftentimes in our contemporary culture, temperance gets reduced down pretty much to just temperance regarding food and drink, and maybe even our sexual appetites. But temperance in the tradition is actually much broader than that. St. Thomas Aquinas would consider that temperance is really about uniting all things and guiding them under reason. In fact, this is what the original Greek meaning of the word is. And with this understanding, all of a sudden we can see how temperance is a great virtue to be pursuing. Some other way to describe it is as selfless self-preservation. Now, what does that mean? It means that in our lives, we're going to be dealing with lots of things that pertain to our self-preservation. Certainly, procreation, food, drink, nourishment, even reputation, we could say, our intellect, our study habits, all these different things pertain to our self-preservation. And there's a way in which we approach these objects in such a way that they can hinder us or help us to pursue the good. And this is why temperance becomes important and why it's framed as a sort of selflessness regarding self-preservation. Because rather than clinging and grasping after material things or the things of this world, we actually can hold on to all sorts of things pretty lightly. And in fact, not only do we hold on to them lightly, but we can let go of them for the sake of a greater good. And this means that at its core, temperance is about the right relationship between the true, the good, and the beautiful, and the world around us, and our ability to use the world around us to pursue the true, the good, and the beautiful. This is pretty abstract, but at its core, it comes down to this, that when I am temperate, I look around at the world, say take food and drink, for example. Food and drink is very necessary for me to sustain my existence. But there's a way in which we can oftentimes become too attached to those goods. Food and drink is a good thing. But when I'm all of a sudden enslaved to a desire to endlessly pursue food and drink, now I'm no longer able to actually see and relate to what is even more true, more good, and more beautiful, who is God. So in this way, food and drink can become a sort of slaveholder over myself. And rather than experiencing the freedom that our Lord desires for us, we can really become entrapped and ensnared by the things of this world. So really, when we are temperate, we're actually preserving our freedom, and we're actually becoming more and more liberated to be in sort of self-control of our desires and of where we're directing our will. And ultimately, we desire that our will is directed towards God. So temperance then helps us to pursue God and also to hold on to the things of this world lightly. It helps us to see how the goods of this life relate to each other and in order to the higher things. So really, all that temperance is, it just readies our soul to be more closely united with God. And because of this, lots of different pieces of our life actually fall under this virtue. Certainly moderation, chastity, continence, but also humility, relating to the truth about ourselves in relation to God and our neighbor rightly. Wrath and anger actually has a place in temperance, that the more that we recognize true injustice and can respond accordingly, there are times where we are called to be upset and to be angry and to actually act rightly. But rather than letting anger subsume us, we are in control of it. And then finally, even our intellectual pursuits, curiosity. Do we seek the truth because it is true and is going to be beneficial to me? Is it useful? Or do I seek it because I really have nothing else that I'm doing? And so I start to look into all sorts of different things not because they're going to be of any real benefit, but simply because my mind is wandering. So brothers and sisters, in this season of Lent, we are called in a particular way to be focusing on this virtue of temperance. And like I said earlier, temperance will ready our soul to be more closely united with God. And just like temperance, all the other virtues really have this goal in mind. And that's really why it's worthy of pursuing the virtues and to continue to learn more about them. Really, there could be a lot more that's said about any one of these virtues: prudence, fortitude, justice, and temperance. There's so much depth and richness to them and in our tradition. So I do encourage you that as you continue to journey through these final days of Lent, that you look into the virtues a little bit more deeply, and that you ask God for the grace to be able to put them into effect with your life. In that way, I think we'll be able to celebrate Easter even more joyously than if we chose not to pursue virtue. I hope you all have a blessed rest of your Lent, and I look forward to seeing you all this weekend. God bless.